This highlight tour is of Site 3711, a Middle Archaic site that was excavated twice in the 1980s by archaeologists from the Maine State Museum. During this tour, I'm going to feature some artifacts that were found during these excavations. Some of these artifacts are typical of Middle Archaic sites, and some are not. Though the site was visited multiple times during and after the Middle Archaic, the only significant and continuous occupation occurred around 7,500 years before present. With the help of a natural amphitheater protecting the site from winds, a small group could have engaged the site from late spring to early fall. The first artifact I'm going to highlight is the possible beginnings of a ground slate semi-lunar knife known as an ulu. Ulus are typical tools of the Middle Archaic and were possibly used for cutting fish or to skin animals. The next artifact is an unfinished atlatl weight. Atlatls are spear throwers that project spears much more powerfully than throwing alone. It is thought that weights like this one were put on atlatls to help improve their performance. This lithic tool is called a whetstone. It would have been used to sharpen other tools such as adze and gouges. The hole at the top suggests that this particular specimen was suspended from a thong. This artifact is a portion of a fully grooved gouge. By attaching a handle at a 90-degree angle, this tool would have been used to hollow out wooden objects like canoes. Archaeologists use the collective term projectile points to describe small pointed objects that would be used for hunting. At this time, during the Middle Archaic, the bow and arrow were not used in this region, so archaeologists suspect that they were used as spear points instead of arrow points. This projectile point and the next one are part of a series called Neville Stark points, named after the Neville site in Manchester, New Hampshire. The Neville and Stark are two types of points that are used to define a range of styles for the Middle Archaic in northern New England. The forms that were found at 3711 are not as precise as the forms from New Hampshire, and they resemble Stark closer than they resemble Neville points, thus emphasizing the range of the two types of points. This Swanton corner notched point is an unusual find for a Middle Archaic site. The Vermont site for which this type of point was originally uncovered was dated around 8,000 years before present, which is 500 years earlier than the estimated occupation date for 3711. Quartz scrapers and flakes are usually present in abundance in Middle Archaic sites. This stemmed point, though, is odd because it is similar to a squib knocket stemmed point of the late Archaic site in New York, making this younger than most of the rest of the artifacts with this site. This quartz point is also unusual because it is similar to the squib knocket triangle point from the same late Archaic site in New York. This particular artifact was found on a different part of the island, which is why it is separated from the rest of the artifacts. Here are some of the artifacts that were found by the owners of the site over the years. Some of these artifacts are typical of Middle Archaic, and some are not. Many other artifacts were found during excavation. Some of them include pecking stones, large hand choppers, slate rods, fire-cracked rocks, a plummet, and grit-tempered pottery. Calcinine bone found near a possible hearth includes specimens of beaver, otter, mink, bear, deer, loon, fish, turtle, and snake. It was once thought that Maine was not occupied during the early and Middle Archaic. More recently, small sites like this one have been identified with the use of radiocarbon dating and collaboration with archaeologists from other parts of New England.